Season 5 of Only Murders in the Building just ended, and it was really fun. And I want to talk about the ways in which they are exploring the clash between the old and the new in this season. Only Murders has always been a show where you have the old and the new literally coming together. We have Martin Short and Steve Martin, who we looked it up yesterday. Steve Martin is 80. How is he 80? He's so young looking to me. And Martin Short is like 75. And then you have Selena Gomez, who's 33. You have these two generations of people coming together in the show. And it's a brilliant move on their part, because for those of us who grew up watching The Jerk and Trains, Planes, and Automobiles and thinking that Steve Martin was so funny and delightful, we want to share that with our kids, but it's harder to get them invested in older media unless they have a connection to it. And the show brilliantly brings together these older actors who I would say are just even more delightful now than they were when they were young somehow. And then you have Selena Gomez and all of the young actors and characters that are engaging with her. And these two very different generations coming together provides an amazing example of really what families and friendships and multi-generational living can be like. And it allows for all sorts of different people of different ages to come together and watch the show, which is one of its great charms. As with every season of the show, we're following our amateur, mismatched, absolutely hilarious sleuths who are also podcasters. We have Steve Martin playing Charles and Martin Short playing Oliver, and then we have Selena Gomez as Mabel. And their completely ridiculous idea for their podcast is that they will only investigate murders that happen within their building, which is the Arconia, which is a fabulous building in New York. And this time they don't have one murder to investigate, but two. And as the show progresses, we see that just like our characters come from different generations, so does the Arconia, because it has the above part of it, but then there's a whole hidden below history. And that's what season 5 explores. For Only Murders, you find out who the murder victim is for the following season and the finale of the season you're in. So in season 4, we learned that our beloved doorman LESTR, played by Teddy Coluca, had been murdered. And as the show looks at the clash between the old and the new in season 5, we get to see LESTR being replaced not just by a new doorman whose name is Randall, played by Jermaine Fowler, but also by a robot called LESTR, LESTR, played by Paul Rudd, who he doesn't play the robot, he voices him, who was our victim on, season 3, and then also played somebody else in season 4. So Paul Rudd, 3 seasons for Only Murders. Let's see if they find some other job for him. But one of the things that the show is looking at in this season is we have these old ways of doing things. We have these doormen, and we got so sad when we saw, all of us, all 4 of us in our family got so sad when LESTR died, because he was part of the heart of the Arconia. He was always there, and he was funny, and he was a little grumpy. He was just fabulous. We loved him so much, and now he's gone. And it's hard enough for Randall to have to replace this beloved institution of a doorman, but he's also having to compete for his job with this robot that remembers everything, knows it all, is theoretically discreet. And so the show is looking at just this moment that we're in right now, where, of course, many of us are worried about AI and what's going to happen to our jobs. We're working through a pretty substantial shift as a society in terms of how we're going to make our livings and how we're going to think and how we're going to produce. And because it's a Steve Martin comedy, of course, they find a very sweet and hilarious way to get us to think about these very real and worrisome issues that we're going through as a society. So throughout the whole season, we get to, as we're trying to figure out what happened to LESTR, and as we learn just how imbricated he was with everything that was happening in Arconia, we also try to figure out what life will be like in this building with these blend of human versus robot, and we worry that maybe it will just be robot. And so it reflects very well our current worries. And it's very windy today here, so there we go. Let's enjoy. It adds a little bit of flair to the video. Season 5 of Only Murders in the Building has 2 murders, our beloved LESTR, but also Nikky, who is a mobster. We know nothing about him. He's played by Bobby Cannavale. And in the finale of season 4, Sofia, his wife, played by Téa Leoni, comes in and tries to get them to investigate the murder of her husband. And they're like, no, we only investigate murders that happen in the building. But being only murders, that murder also happened in the building. And as the show is trying to come to terms with the clash between the old and the new, what we get from Bobby and Sofia is this exploration of the old mob. They actually live in the house where the Godfather was filmed on Staten Island, and they actually went in and they filmed in this house. And in the story, Nikky and Sofia have bought this house as part of their connection to the old mob. But what we realize as the show goes on, they have these 5 sons that are all like big and strong. And when we first meet them in the Godfather house, they're like so terrifying, and they have knives and they're doing all of this stuff. And then it turns out they're pitching to Charles and Oliver and Mabel their own podcast about the mob. And they turn out to be like the sweetest, most helpless, mommy obsessed boys who ever lived, even though they're like these very big, burly men. So what they're looking at with this storyline is this comical, again, it's Only Murders, and nostalgic look at what the mob used to be like in New York. When we thought of mobs, there's this whole mystique, this whole history of them. And what we end up with now is sort of even the children of the mobsters are trying to embody this completely different version of it. They're infatuated with the past that was their family's past, but they are those heirs, and all they can do is be very sweet kids who are trying to tell stories about a past that they have nothing to do with anymore. In Only Murder Season 5, we have the decline of the old New York mob as embodied by Nikky, Bobby Cannavale, who's actually dead. And what comes as the new and the old clash in this wonderful season is a new kind of mob that is created by some of our culture's favorite villains today, which are billionaires. Unlike Nikky, who makes his living having a lot of dry cleaners and also an amazing underground casino in the Arconia, these billionaires, they don't have a desperate need for money. They have all the money. We have Renée Zellweger playing Camila, who is a Martha Stewart kind of decoration queen. She's also an ice queen. She's very cold and complicated. Then we have Christoph Waltz, who plays, I don't even want to say who, but it's basically maybe the owners of Google or Jeff Bezos, some kind of king of tech who is fascinated with the idea of not dying and pretty good at it. There's all these, who knows how old he is. And then we have Jay, played by Logan Lerman, who is basically a Nepo baby. He is somebody who came into all sorts of money, young, handsome, complete brat. Now, these three people don't have a need to commit a bunch of crimes in order to make money, but they're also desperately bored in a way because they have it all. And they've had it all for a long time. So their reasons for wanting to commit crimes, if indeed they are committing them, come from a desire to one-up each other, to find something to make them feel alive and engaged in this world that has become less interesting to them because they have everything you could possibly have. And interestingly, they are fascinated by the old mob as well. Just like the children of the old mob are fascinated by the old mob, and just like everybody has this mystique associated with the mob, they do too. And they love the idea of the casinos and the underground. Again, not because of the money, but to sort of have a feeling of any kind of thrill in this life that they're leading, which is empty of desire and things to want. And of course, they become our very fun and interesting villains for our three heroes to investigate and try to make sense of. But if you think investigating the mob is hard, try investigating three very smart, very wealthy, very bored billionaires and see how it goes for you. Even as in season 5, the old and the new clash in many, many ways, there's one collection of old and new that is working better together than it has throughout all of the seasons, and that would be our fabulous protagonists. So Oliver and Charles and Mabel, after having all sorts of moments throughout the show during which they distrust each other, and one of them ends up working alone and the other one goes off, and maybe all three of them are alone because they can't figure out how to be a team or how to have their relationships and existential crises together and still solve murders with each other. This time around, they actually managed to work together really, really well. And it's a testament to the power of the show that we don't necessarily need that conflict this time around. Because by now, it's been 5 seasons of these people working together, and we believe that they, at the end of the day, are going to be there for each other. So the conflicts come from different situations. They come from the billionaires and from LESTR, the robot, and from the possibility that they're going to lose the Arconia. And just the angst that we're all feeling right now as the world is changing way faster than we think we can handle. And I think this show was better for it. There may be conflict in seasons to come between our 3 protagonists, but I was glad that this season they were a unified front. As season 5 of Only Murders looked at the conflicts that happened between the old and the new, it also explored some people and characters who are just evergreen, and it was absolutely delightful to see it. I don't know how we ended up with Meryl Streep married to Oliver Putnam in Only Murders, but it is one of my favorite things that has ever happened on a TV show. And Meryl doesn't come in for that many episodes because she's Meryl Streep, but Loretta, Oliver's wife, whenever she's there, she just lights up the screen and does her Meryl Streep magic. And in this season, they had Loretta pretend to be a psychic as she tried to get Renée Zellweger's Camila the billionaire to confess to all sorts of things that they needed to understand in order to see who had killed LESTR and who had killed Nikky. And Meryl just nailed it. You could see just the joy that she was having at playing what is already like a flighty kind of ridiculous character, because who else falls in love with Oliver Putnam? And then that flighty, ridiculous character becoming an even more flighty, more ridiculous character in the look and style of a psychic. But she nails it. Not just the role, but she gets Camila. Another evergreen character in season 5 of Only Murders is divine Joy Randolph, who plays Detective Williams in the show. And she won an Academy Award for her incredible performance in The Leftovers as a grieving mother. Oh my God, it was so great. And while that performance was serious and heartbreaking and compassionate, she just gets such a kick out of being this detective that she was very suspicious of our 3 protagonists at the beginning, but now she knows that if somebody's gonna solve the murder, it's going to be them. And on the same episode that Meryl Streep is going about playing a psychic, she gets to play a blackjack dealer. I don't know what she's dealing, probably something. I'm not a gambler. And you can just see what a kick she's getting out of the show and how powerful it is for her as somebody who also does very serious films to just laugh and be ridiculous and preposterous on this show. So even as the old and the new collides in the show, we also end up with some very prestigious actors colliding into some very goofy roles and stealing every scene that they're in. And that is also fun to watch. So tell me, have you seen season 5? Have you seen all seasons? What did you think about the old and the new coming together? Do you agree or do you disagree with this analysis? And I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but what do you think about the victim for season 6?